Hello, everybody. Today we're here with candidate for Senate, Alex Rikleen. And I always start these by just saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for running. And thanks for being of the new generation of candidates that actually talks to real people, real dads, because that's what we've lost in the United States. We've got these insulated candidates that don't interact with us. They don't talk to us. They don't care what our message is. We need a change in government. You're doing this excellent work to be part of that change. So I'm so happy you're here. And go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. I am Alex Rikleen. I am a dad. eh, um, I live in Acton, Massachusetts. I grew up a couple towns over in Wayland, Massachusetts. I went to public school here. I went to Boston College, studied history and secondary education to become a high school history teacher.
Yes.
Graduated into 2009. Not ideal timing to be starting a teaching career, especially not a history teaching career. So quickly got certified in math and have ended up teaching a whole bunch of other subjects as well. Um, and I, uh, um, so that's sort of my core background. Um, and I got into this race, but to get at another thing that you hit on of, I don't think that Democrats are really listening to the voters. Um, I got into this race. I made the decision around getting into this race after the Kash Patel hearing, after, this QAnon influencer, who had said the FBI should be used to target Trump's enemies, uh, got appointed to be the leader of the FBI. And yes, every Democrat did vote against him, but they treated it as business as usual. They didn't do anything out of the ordinary to call attention to how extreme he was, to slow down his nomination. And this was, you know, 5051 was organized in a week. You already had people with major national platforms calling for Democrats to do more to fight back. And Democrats had kind of said, no, we think we know how to handle this. We think we know what's best. And they had picked their strategy and they were ignoring the demands of their constituents. Between the time when I made that decision and when I actually got everything together and announced, um, 40 Democratic town committees from around the state um, put together a letter calling for a lot of my platform saying, we want Democrats to be doing these specific things. And it was really kind of gratifying to say, like, yeah, there's a demand for
Yes.
exactly what I'm saying. I'm not just the only one thinking this. I'm not, as I'm exploring this, I'm not imagining that. I'm not hearing what I want to hear. Even people I'm not talking to are saying this. So yeah, Democrats aren't listening to the voters.
Absolutely. Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you ask. I know you've always got great ideas about messaging and what the Democrats should do. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, I'm interested to like you literally just laid out the gap, right? That you see uh, across the country and strategy. I like for a year, like I haven't really seen. It does seem like it's the same old strategy. It's the same old talking points. It's the same old legacy media segments. That is it. No real talking. They speak in slogans. You know what I mean? And it's pretty frustrating, especially when you're a human being, you're an American, just like you, who you're watching this happen and you're like, man, what the heck is going on? You know? And so I'm super glad that you decided to run. I mean, where do you think that gap is, right? Between, because you can just go out and talk to people. That's
Mhm.
pretty freaking easy. What do you think the gap is between, I mean, because you're running in a seat, right? He's been around for a while. He freaking raises money. He has some good projects that he's done. But the reality is like he's not talking to the people that live there.
Yeah, no, he's talented politician. First person to beat a Kennedy in Massachusetts. End sentence there. I've chosen a difficult race. Um, But I do think that's honestly, I think some of the problem is exactly that. Is these are people who have had success. Um, these are, in many ways, people who have won races. These are people who um, have successfully raised money. They've navigated a
Seriously.
environment,
Who's
and
who's taking
so
APAC in your race, though? Who's taking APAC funds in your race?
at this point, no one.
Oh, good.
So,
Well, that's good.
He's
so
not checked.
yeah, so
Good.
there are,
Glad to verify that.
you know, you got Representative Moulton, Senator Markey, myself. Um, there may be a fourth candidate. I'm not sure he'll be able to qualify for the. I may end up not qualifying for the ballot. I don't think he will either. Um, um, that's a. But so of the three of us, Representative Moulton took APAC throughout his career. He was seeking APAC's endorsement throughout the summer before he announced his campaign. However, shortly after he announced his candidacy, he actually made a whole show of giving back his recent APAC money.
Okay.
So at this point, none of the three of us are taking APAC money. Um,
That's a win already, I'll say. That shows our pressure, and that I attribute a lot of that to you too. I mean, people like you being in these races, applying that pressure, that's change. Although I still want to get a new generation of leadership. So continue.
I think that you can see that in a lot of these races, in my race and in other races around the country, where even in the races where you don't where the incumbent has no expectation of actually losing, they know that we're here, and
Yeah.
they are doing some things to make sure that us challengers stay where we are, and they are modifying some of their approaches. They're modifying some of their stances
Yes.
because of things that I'm doing, things that other challengers. You spoke to Erica
Yes.
Kopp. Yeah,
Wonderful.
challengers like that.
Yes.
I think that we are able to apply pressure and push these incumbents to take stronger stances to
Yes.
change some of their actions.
And that's why we play the games, right? I always say that. It's like they don't want, and this has been coming up a lot. I've been talking to a lot of candidates, and it really makes me upset because primaries are healthy. Primaries are healthy for democracy. Primaries are healthy. And the Democratic Party doesn't like primaries and they pressure it. And
No.
we've seen that the legacy media is complicit because they don't give appropriate coverage. They're abdicating their duties. And that's why we are doing these interviews here on Substack to transform this because the people deserve to choose who represents them in their district, not Washington, D.C. And there's all these things the Democrats do that are very offensive when they start with their electability commentary, which is bigotry. It's misogyny. They shouldn't use those words. We should run the best candidate, let the people decide, and let them win. So I was wondering if you've had this happen yet. I mean, as you generate steam, a lot of the other candidates have been saying they've been getting calls from the DNC telling them they want them to drop out. Has that happened to you, or have you heard of that happening?
I've definitely heard of that happening in other races. Um, I have not, fortunately, not had that. I've had, especially earlier before I started, there was some subtle pressure especially to try to stop me from starting. Um, there was some, s- there was some sort of behind closed doors efforts to send the signal that this was not a welcome effort. Um, but it was never explicit. And it sort of powered through. And um, as I have been going about this, and as I have gone about this campaign in a way where, I am willing to critique my opponents, but I do so, I think, respectfully. I do compliment Representative Moulton on his work on veterans issues. I do compliment Senator Markey on the areas in which he's succeeded, but also call for more, and have shown myself to be someone who's not just throwing flames, but sincerely pushing. I have gotten less of that with time. I do think that they would rather I not be here, but but I haven't gotten it as bad as some of the other candidates I've spoken to. That's definitely true. Um,
Yeah.
and what I got was worse in the early stages. It has actually subsided a bit over time. But also, we're gonna see Massachusetts has um so Massachusetts is the only state in the country where there is a large signature burden and a delegate threshold to get on the ballot. And
Hmm.
it is possible, I don't know, but maybe they're just being polite because they think that I'm gonna fail at one or both of those. And they're hoping that I go away soon. Um, and so the signature deadline is May 5th. If you're hearing this and able to help, I do need help.
Yeah.
Getting to 10,000 signatures is a lot, and we are going to get there, but we're going to need some buffer.
Yeah.
And then getting to 15% of the delegates at the convention, that is also going to be tough. Some people think I'll get it. More people think I won't. We're not going to know until the voting happens on Saturday, May 30th. And so it is possible that some of them being polite is because they think that my campaign has an expiration date.
You're still out knocking on doors, though. You're still spreading the message. You're still activating voters, and this is good for the Democrats, so they should be behind you. They should be positive. But I'll turn it over to
Absolutely.
Anthony.
Yeah. Look, right now there's what we're seeing is oh, I already asked that question. Sorry, I had a little note here.
I get that too. I write them on my envelopes. I sit here with my envelopes writing my little notes out.
We've all been there.
Americans are experiencing life as it comes at them, and so when you're out talking to people, like, what's that transition like, right? Because what the messages that Democrats are saying right now, they speak in slogans. And I said this earlier, they speak in slogans. They don't really talk to Americans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're out and about having conversations, what is that? What are you hearing from your community?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So Blue Sky has been having this fight frequently, but especially the last couple days
See it?
about, is the economy actually bad or is it bad vibes? And part of that argument is sort of a question of, can multiple things be happening simultaneously, and can voters be able to talk about and think about multiple things simultaneously? And I think that the Democratic Party's approach kind of assumes that voters can only think about one thing. The Democratic Party's approach right now seems to be, voters can only really process the concept of affordability, and so we're only going to talk about that. And I'll often talk to people where I'll explain sort of my message and my concepts and whatever, and they'll be like, "I agree with everything you're saying, but I think when you're talking to other people, you're gonna need to dumb it down a little bit." Um, and it's this kind of funny dichotomy where I think people are able to have multiple thoughts in their head. I think people are able
Imagine that.
to hear more a varied message. I think people are able to process two thoughts at once. And I keep having these conversations where I go out there and I'm like, look, we need to do more to push back against Trump. When we get power back, if we don't start with addressing the structures that allowed all this to happen and the structures that have blocked progress, then the differences between Markey and Moulton, the differences between Fetterman and Bernie Sanders don't matter that much because neither of them are going to be able to accomplish their goals. We have to set up a governmental structure where the differences between them matter.
Mhm.
And when I talk to people about that, a lot of people agree. People agree that the government is broken. They see that. And sometimes they then say, I don't know if that message is going to work for someone else. But I do think when I'm talking to people, most of the people I talk to actually do are able to sort of resonate with that. And so it's kind of a funny
Yeah.
a funny thing where like
Yeah.
I can process what you're saying. I'm not sure other people can, but everyone can.
Well,
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. What I have a hard time with is when I see my party, right, talk about Trump. It frustrates me because nobody is saying they lied to get your vote. Do you know what I mean? They lied to get your vote. You were the first group of
yeah.
people that they screwed when they got in office. And it seems that we're afraid to say that in a lot of communities. There's no movement
Yeah.
on the ground. We just had an election in Georgia that I feel like Harris could have won. Sean Harris, right? But the turnout was only 22.5%. And think about this for a minute, right? 22.5% in a district where that has been hit by every single one of Trump's policies. And you're not going to get turnout. You know what I mean? In that same respect, if it was in a different area, in New England somewhere, turnout would have been way more. But you have to fix that by going in there prior, not just rolling in right before the election and with vote blue, man.
Yeah.
You got to talk to people in there and see what is going on, change the narrative, so to speak, in people's lives because so many Americans already they
Yeah.
they already think they understand.
Yeah. I do want to say, it is disappointing that Harris lost. But he did dramatically overperform for that district. There is a lot of good news out of, even though he'd
It is.
rather
I
win.
agree.
Yeah.
I
Um,
totally agree.
yeah. I do want to highlight bright spots when we find them. And I do think that obviously a win would have been better, but if we can replicate the swing in that district across Georgia, then the Republican
Yeah.
gerrymander is actually going to win Democrats seats. Their effort to
Yeah,
take
that
away a
makes
seat
sense. Yeah.
is yeah. So like there was some good there. It was a tough
I
year.
No, no.
I know I'm hard on my party. You know what I mean? Because I just feel like we should be so much better, man.
We
I,
should
I
we
will
should
say,
be hard on our party. That's how we make it better.
yes, I get really tired of the Democrats mansplaining how their strategy that always fails is the only thing we can try. And it's just like, because you always hear this and it becomes like a default. Well, Mom Donnie's campaign would have never worked in these deep red areas. Try it. You don't know that for a fact. They say this as if it's a fact. And then they lose, and then they're like, well, we only lost by 5 points instead of 20, and that's a win. It's like, no, a win's a win. And it's like, I see what you're saying, but I also just want the wins.
Sure.
And you got nothing to lose, right? Because you're like the other candidate, you're the challenger. So say these things. Let's try out. Let's see how the people respond, and then get back to the other candidates and tell
Yeah.
them. So your thoughts?
Yeah. I think, you know, the Mamdani campaign comes up a lot. And I'm often asked sort of, what can we learn from him? Because I'm not running to be mayor. I'm running to be a member of 100-person body. And there's a lot of different powers available. Which, you know, what can I learn from him? Um, I want to be charismatic. I'm probably not as charismatic as him, and I certainly don't have his video team. Um, but one of the things that a couple of things that really jump out to me from that race is when Mamdani spoke, people believed that he believed what he was saying. You're just never going to convince me that the city that contains Wall Street, that the majority of that city is willing to vote for a socialist, democratic socialist, but
Yeah,
but
no, no.
someone who has socialist in the description, um, um, because they agreed with him on everything. I don't think that's why he won. I think they agreed, they voted for him. I mean, yes, they didn't like Cuomo or Adams, but also like he was able to present as this guy means it when he says what he's saying. Um, we can trust this guy to tell us what he's actually thinking and tell us what he's actually feeling, and he's gonna do what he says he's going to do. And I think people will tolerate a decent chunk of policy disagreement if they think that the person they're talking to is being honest. Um, and and I'm not sure that's something that the establishment Democrats have really let sink in, because we're so stuck on trying to tie everything back to kitchen table issues. We're so stuck on talking about why is the war on Iran bad for your grocery bill, which it is, but it's also completely immoral and completely illegal. Um, and we can talk about all of that. We don't have to just like tie everything back to your grocery bill. We can be authentic. We can say what we mean.
Yeah, no, totally. And it wins. Being authentic wins, I think. And I believe that it does not matter where a candidate is authentic. It could be in a red district, it could be in a blue district. I think that's the model. Not that Mamdani socialist, right, is gonna make it everywhere, but being authentic does.
Yeah.
Speaking like the people that you're representing is important.
And I just want to say again, Alex, I mean, you come across as authentic to me, and just having you here, like being willing to come and talk, because I see in the establishment Democrats, they are terrified to come and talk to regular people, and a lot of them are just they born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they just honestly don't understand because they've never known what it's like to have to work for a living or to be a history teacher in a time when we teach history like it's the redacted Epstein files. And maybe that's why we got into this mess, right? Because if we have to hide all the crimes of these people that we're taught to revere, and we are indoctrinated to do that, it makes us so we overlook it when they emerge again. But I want to get back to like people. Yeah, I think the Democrats are too focused on policy. Nobody cares about policy. I don't think. And it's like, and even the Democrats by themselves, they say, well, they're not able to understand. They have this kind of entitled attitude about what the population is. They're disrespectful to what the people believe. And it's like, but then they insist on only talking about policy. You know what I want to talk about? My wife's an immigrant, and I'm just sick and tired of having to worry about a masked police. We don't have any assurance. And like, what assurance do we have that the people they're hiring are not rapists and murderers and child rapists? We don't know because we don't know who these people are. They're
Well,
giving them money.
I gotta jump in and stop you right there.
Go ahead.
We have assurances that they are rapists.
I
There
was
have
being
been
diplomatic, but I applaud you. I applaud you. Yes.
there have been there have been multiple ICE members or ICE people who have their rape have been so bad that they've actually been arrested.
Yes.
I mean, we know how hard it is to be a member of the enforcement community in this country and actually face accountability for your crimes. And there have been multiple people in ICE who have been actually arrested and are being prosecuted for specifically rape. There are multiple people who are being held in detention centers who got pregnant while in detention centers and then were transferred into states with abortion bans. So it is
Crazy.
we know that they are rapists. Like just unless there's a new virgin
Yes.
birth happening, and 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 it's really really messed up. I mean, this is why I've been saying since the beginning of my campaign that we have to abolish ICE. This
Yes.
is why I've been saying since the beginning of my campaign that the members of this administration have to, including ICE, but not limited to ICE, have to face accountability for the crimes that they are committing in the name of our government. We part of why this administration has been able to conduct so much damage is because of the well-established lack of accountability over the decades leading up to this moment.
Totally.
I often try to paint the picture for you for a second. Get away from ICE for a second. Imagine you're just some mid-level bureaucrat in the Trump administration, and you are asked to do an illegal order. Not any, not, I'm not talking about, murdering someone on a boat. An illegal funding rescission or something. Definitely illegal.
Yeah,
definitely not something you should
illegal.
do. But not quite so night and day as you're literally going to click a button and kill someone. Think about your choices in that moment. On the one hand, you can follow this illegal order. You have committed a crime. You have helped committing a crime. But based on recent American history, you probably will not face any consequences for it at any point in your life. Or you can uphold your oath and say, no, this is an illegal order. I'm not going to follow through. And you will almost certainly get fired. And you are at risk of getting a Truth Social post that specifically names you and leads to death threats. If you're some mid-level bureaucrat deciding whether or not to cancel $100,000 in funding to a state you've never been in, they're just acting in their own self-interest to follow that illegal order. We have to be signaling right now that is about to change, that accountability has
Good
to
job, man.
that prosecutions have to come, that the United States was making a mistake in the decades leading up to this.
Yes.
Government officials were allowed to just violate the law. And that is a part of the rebuilding that has to happen, is that not just the people who are literally committing rape, but also the people who are assisting in these illegal funding cuts. All of these people who are committing crimes are going to face appropriate levels of accountability for their crimes. And we have to do that in order to rebuild a functional government and reset the precedent, because we're not going to be in power forever. I do think Democrats are going to take back power over the next couple of years, but we're not going to be in power forever. And we have to set up the precedent so that when we're not in power, things don't get as bad.
Things don't fall. Yeah.
That was awesome, and I appreciate so much.
Awesome, man.
I was hoping he'd go there once I got started. He went exactly.
You just went off, buddy. Great.
That was great. And it's like, this happens, and this is what happens a lot with these courage candidates, the other courage candidates I've talked to, when I'm trying to approach a topic and they're just like, no, let's do it. And I'm just saying, yeah, because you're trying to talk to the establishment, and that's the establishment that needs to change. And I always say, we gave them all the power they needed in 2020. We need a new generation of leaders. Democrats had they had the Congress, they had the presidency, they could have stopped this. And this generation of Democrats failed to do so. So we need new people involved, and I love what you're saying. Go ahead.
You know who was a part of that trifecta? Senator Markey, Representative Moulton. They were both there.
Yeah.
For something new. Anthony, other thoughts?
It's fun. This is awesome. I love it. You're speaking my language. And that's what I'm talking about. Just not being able to afraid to speak is the most important thing, right? I can't tell you how refreshing that was. And when I watch Walter and these candidates, it is awesome to hear candidates speak like real human beings. That's all I care about. Tell me what's up, man. Don't sugarcoat it. And if you say a slogan to me, I'm not fucking voting for you. You know what I mean?
This is the political capital of the Democrats right now. No party has ever had more political capital. Parents do not want to have their kids get raped. That's what this is going to determine. I don't want my kids to be raped. I mean, it comes down to that. And for current establishment that lost to a convicted felon to just retreat out of some misplaced sense of decorum? I want my government to protect my kids from child rapists. That's what I want.
You know what I thought? I actually thought, and this was just like early, like when Trump took office, like right around Inauguration Day. I actually had the thought. I really believed in my brain that Hakeem Jeffries would like be out in the podium and say, "Okay, here's what's really going on," every day. And I was telling somebody that, "Oh yeah, don't worry, he'll do that." You know what I mean? He'll give us like what's going on. And he looked at me like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" And I thought, "What?" And like the months went on, and I kept thinking, the Trump is doing all this shit, and we're not hearing much, you know. And I thought, man, the propaganda that's coming out of the White House right now, there
Yeah.
needs to be some type of foundational, like, hey, look, here's what's going on. No questions from the press. Let me tell you what is happening here on the ground in DC. I actually believe that. So when it did happen, I was like, are you kidding me? Because I thought we would do something like that. There's so much propaganda, so many lies coming from every area of this, and like all the regime officials, right? That there needs to be some type of counterweight. And I at least thought that the establishment party would go out every day and say, this is what's happening. Here's what's really going on. And that is bullshit. They're lying to you.
I try to be an optimistic person. I think I often am. And I try to find the positive spin on things. And I remember immediately after Trump's election, there were all of these people sort of posting and talking about, and I don't think I was one of the people who said it, but I definitely liked some of them, saying, look to Senator Markey, and they named a couple of people as like, these are going to be the people who are going to
Guide us.
next
Right.
next 4 months. And Senator Markey in particular was one of the names on that list. And between, November 8th or whenever that was, and when I started this campaign, I remember feeling like, you know, he was supposed to be one of those people, and I don't feel like he was. And I don't think that anyone really was. And I think
Agreed.
that that's a real failing. We do need that guidance. We do need that leadership to the extent that anyone was. It was Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Yes. Yeah.
with their Stop the Oligarchy tour. And I think that what they were doing with that was great. But, I also spent a couple of years doing some sports writing. And so I often like sort of link back to a sports analogy. I think of Bernie Sanders and AOC as like they're the 3-point specialist. They have their role and they're great at it. But they
Yep.
need the rest of the party to be able to rebound and get them the pass. And
Well,
the rest of the party isn't doing that. And so
Right.
they can spread the floor all they want, but where's the rest of the party setting them up? And so AOC and Bernie are doing this tour, rallying the base,
Yes.
saying we're going to fight the oligarchy, and where's the rest of the party doing the infrastructural work to
yes.
support that and build that up and capture that energy and keep it going?
Yeah.
And I
Let it die on my team.
Well, they deliberately suppress them. They deliberately suppress Bernie and AOC. And this is why, again, I want to applaud you for being here, because we have this opportunity. We can have these conversations. The people are really frustrated. The Democrats, if they want to win elections, they should listen to the people, right? And how it would, in the convenience of their phone, around their schedule, they could come and talk to us. We could build up this messaging media here on Substack. We're doing it already. I see Dana's here. She'll probably invite you onto the Daily Whatever too at some point. You can keep talking. These conversations, I mean, once you get onto a debate stage, once you're out talking to people in the neighborhoods, activate the public and let them know that this is our democracy and we do get to choose who runs. And if the people there are not standing up for us, Why aren't our senators going to these concentration camps and demanding entry and showing what's happening and getting that shut down and exposing the crimes of this regime? They have the power to do that. If I try to go down there, I'm going to get shot. A senator can go there and be on live TV. Hell, they can use my platform. I'll broadcast it for them. But go down to Dilley and make sure people are not being subjected to crimes against humanity on the taxpayer dime. We're sick of having our money go and fund child rapists and people and bombs that blow up schools full of kids. And yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, and the Democrats, well, Mom Donnie's message wouldn't work in red area. It's like, talk about the kids, talk about human beings. Stop all the things that you're saying and just expose the crimes because we're just letting them do these things. We know they're making these crimes, but it's like there's such control, oligarch control of all the media, and that our politicians could get around that by talking to independent media. And because they're deliberately not doing it, and it's only courage candidates like you who are willing to do it, it makes me feel that they're complicit. I don't think it's...
Did you guys see Pete Buttigieg on CNBC?
No.
Did you see that segment? Okay.
Well, maybe I don't.
We got some good. Here's my point. We have some really good speakers. Okay. But it is not a strategy for Democrats to go on the hostile media and just have facts. That's weird to me because look, we don't control the media.
They normalize hostile media.
Saturation inside our own media system, in a system we don't control. We have good people that can push back, but it's Pete, it's a few, we have some influencers that hit hostile media. We have a couple of, elected officials that hit hostile, but it's not like a full blown, every time Newsmax or Fox News comes on, I want to be able to see a freaking Democrat hammering facts. That's it. But instead we don't get that. There needs to be I just feel like they need to be in the face of the American public, right? On hostile media, legacy media. You're running the same segments that you've always done, answering regime frame questions, things like that. But instead, go on and just hammer, facts. That's the beauty of it. We have the facts. We don't even need to bullshit a little bit, not a little bit. We can just tell the truth, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you want to go everywhere. You want to talk to everyone. I think that we, I so much of my message is sort of Democrats are failing us. And so sometimes I get asked, why are you running as a Democrat, not an independent? And I believe in the ideals of what the Democratic Party is supposed to stand for. And those ideals say we should go everywhere. We should try to talk to everyone. Absolutely. I do also think we should be realistic about the limits of what we'll accomplish when we go to Newsmax, when we go to Fox News. I think making sure we have presence in those platforms is a good thing. But in terms of how do we win elections, I think we win elections with turnout. It's been a while since I looked at the national data, so I don't know that. But in Massachusetts, at least, turnout in the early 90s was 15-20 points higher than it's been here in the last couple of decades.
That says a lot, man.
So, there's a huge gap in available voters, and I think that reaching those people who, honestly, if I bumped into them on the street, would be more likely to support me than a Republican, or any Democrat than a Republican. Finding them and getting them to come out, re-engaging them, I think is an easier path, frankly, to winning than having our presence on those platforms. Having our presence on those platforms is a good thing to do civically. I do think it's a good thing to do long term, but I don't think that that's going to have much impact in terms of electoral outcomes. I think in terms of electoral outcomes,
just the narrative outcome, right? Because Trump's narrative is they hammer, right,
Yeah.
every day. They send their people out, and we don't really counter at that scale.
Correct.
But you are absolutely right. We need to dig into those communities. And it is about narrative, man. I really think so many people are just upset and just frustrated with the party itself,
Yeah.
right? That they're like, man, I'm not coming out. I don't give a shit who votes, right? Or who's running. That's what happened. We had 89 million people or something like that stay home. And that says a lot that we're not hitting those communities in a messaging way that reaches those people. We're hitting slogans.
I think I want to say too, it's interesting to me that we can have constructive criticism about the Democratic Party. And I think it's interesting that people are saying, then why aren't you running as an independent? But when Democrats say we have to appeal to moderate Republicans, nobody says, then run as a Republican if that's what you want. So I just think it's interesting you're getting that kind of pressure. And it just kind of shows this narrative structure that we're under. So, go ahead, respond.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think honestly, I think that was the point Hassan Piker made on Pod Save America the other day. That you know that he wants Democrats to spend as much time trying to win him as they
yes,
do trying to win the centrist swing voter.
I love the rainbow band you had on your wrist, though, and you lifted your head up
Oh
too.
yeah.
Perfect. And I just want to say too, our
Yeah,
Democrats,
been wearing this since long before I started the campaign.
great.
That's
Well,
who I am.
yeah. And I just want to say too, it's like Democrats are willing to go and talk to extreme right wing. We saw Gavin Newsom bringing on Steve Bannon. That normalizes that. And that's really offensive to me. And we've seen, you look at the oligarch media, they never bring on experts. They bring on like a fancy newscaster who gives a sanitized version of things and then gets the facts wrong. And I found on independent media here, like Substack, I get a lot of people with PhDs who reach out to me. These are brilliant people.
Judges.
Yes.
I get a lot of people who are like, hey, you know what, Anthony, you said this, but here's what's going on,
and they're willing to talk because
yeah,
they don't get any view. It's like, why are you willing? And it's like, I feel so privileged by this and intimidated a lot of times. But it's because our media doesn't bother to educate the people, and neither do our politicians. So if we could just pressure, and maybe this is something you could do in your circles, pressure more people to just come and talk to rational, educated people for a change. Because we know that our legacy media, they chase open rates. So that's why we get 50 stories about the Kardashians. That's why the only thing they cover is like the stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene says. We need to get away from that and start educating, using it. You're an educator. Use our media, use our political system as a way to educate the public rather than just defer and do like what Anthony says, where we just respond to all these framed arguments that are really just a version of extreme right-wing ideology and white supremacy in many cases.
Yep.
We have to push back against that. So your thoughts there.
Yeah. And I think people are open to some level of education if it's framed well. What was the recent, back to Mamdani? There was a recent Mamdani video that opened with some like 15th century history story.
Oh yeah.
But it was engaging and people listened and they waited until the end. People are willing to engage with some kind of education. You got to be willing to.
Well, we defer to so many things. Like the right will say, well, there's bad people on both sides. And then we just defer like that's true. And we never mention that, child abuse is a feature of the right and it's an exception on the left. And it's like, these are things that we allow them to just arrange these things. And then we get stuck in these. It's like, it doesn't seem like there's any escape. But there are, once we educate the population, we push back on these lies that have become established as norms in the United States, that we can have a government that works for us, for one thing, that we don't have to just turn all of our money over to billionaire welfare. Like we always forget about this tax the rich idea. It's like, we don't even have to do that. Let's just stop giving them free taxpayer dollars when their businesses fail in the form of, bailouts and PPP loans and subsidies and inflated contracts. Why is it that every time a billionaire gets into a little bit of hardship, the entire American people, have to pull themselves up and they have to make sacrifices. And we have to ensure that this billionaire is comfortable. They never have to mortgage their properties. Yeah. Why don't we have a billionaire draft? We tell young men they have to go and die. They have to go and die to protect this country. They have to make that sacrifice. We never even think to ask billionaires to give a little bit of money, to help our debt. And it's like, why don't we ever even talk about these things?
Yeah. Yeah, Massachusetts has a state level issue. Massachusetts has a millionaire's tax on the ballot this year.
Awesome.
And seems like a promising step in the right direction. I think California already has something like that. Or maybe it's a ballot initiative in California as well.
It's a ballot initiative in California. Yeah. I'm in Nevada, so yeah. I grew up in Vermont, though.
Yeah. I think that those are steps in the right direction. Elizabeth Warren has her proposed tax on the super wealthy. I think that one of the things that we kind of have gotten away from is remembering how many things are choices.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously though, our structure of government is a choice. Our policies are choices, and we can make different choices. And different choices create different incentives, and different incentives will create different outcomes. And we can incentivize better governance. We can incentivize better corporate behavior. We can incentivize all of those things. We just have to make a series of different choices. But most things are actually choices. And it's so easy, the book itself was pretty problematic, but the title, The End of History, was like so fantastic. So many people kind of got it into their head that at some point we kind of reached to the end of history and things were kind of fixed. And that's the structure of government moving forward. And that's kind of the structure of our economy moving forward. And it wasn't, all of our systems were created, most of them not that long ago. We can and should keep iterating and keep improving and keep making things better. And as we keep fixing structures, we will make things better.
Yeah.
We just have to think about it that way and make those choices.
Excellent. Anthony, thoughts?
No, I agree with everything you just said. You're absolutely right. I agree with everything you guys just said. So this is an awesome interview. You're great, man.
Let's just throw some flowers. I
want to do more. I want to make sure you get these signatures, man.
Yeah. So, all right. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yes. Do it.
Super important. And if you're listening and you've liked anything like that, signature process in Massachusetts is honestly ridiculous. So I have to get 10,000 signatures by May 5th. They have to be submitted to their respective town clerk by 5 p.m. at May 5th. So even if your town clerk is open till 7, they've got to have the stamp on them by 5 p.m. or they don't count. Massachusetts is 351 different towns. Each signature has to go to a different town. It is all a logistical nightmare. We have gotten a lot of the signatures that we need, but you've got to get over 10,000 because some get thrown out. Some people
need a coach, man.
Yeah. So if you can, please help. If you can, Walter put the website in the chat. Thank you. So we can just we can mail you a form and you can sign it, get a couple of friends to sign it, bring it down to your town clerk, and then even if that's all you do, even if all you do is just like get 5 signatures on that form that you brought to the town clerk, that helps. If you can bring a clipboard to your town square and walk around for an hour, that helps even more. But the more help, the better. It is going to be making sure we clear this hurdle and clear it with enough room to spare that we are safe. It is going to be a battle. If you're able to volunteer on the evening on Patriots Day, on May Day, there are going to be a lot of protests, or on the evenings of Monday, the 27th, or Monday, May 4th, the last day. There are a lot of things around the state that are really good opportunities. So if any of those are things you can help with, that'll make a huge difference. Reach out. There's my website's in the chat. You can email info@alexrikleen.us. And yeah, let's make sure that I'm on the ballot so I can keep pushing these in this conversation, keep pushing Senator Markey and Representative Moulton to be better reps right now. There are two sitting congressmen in this race. And as long as I am in this race, I can be pushing those two sitting congressmen to be better.
Yeah.
We don't have to think about November. We don't have to think about September. We don't have to think about January. I can help make current members of Congress better, help keep me in this race, help me do that. Thank you for giving this. Thank you for interviewing me. Thank you for interviewing the other Courage candidates as well. Really, really appreciate it.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And I want to encourage everybody who has the platform here on Substack to keep this going. Let's get Alex on that ballot. And yeah, let's give people a choice, because democracy requires a choice, right? And we can't have it. They just impose one candidate upon us. And it's healthy. It's healthy to have these conversations. So I applaud what you're doing. And I always tell people, these primaries are vital for our democracy because they generate name recognition. And there's school board races. School board races are super. You're an educator. I think that's the most important thing. Honestly, well, from Senate to school board, that would be a win. And at every level of government where we can ensure that our ballots are appropriately counted, that's all state and county and town legislation. So keep the conversation going. Keep talking to real people. Those of you, particularly in Massachusetts, get involved and get this done. Go ahead, Anthony. You had something to say?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming. It was super great to listen to you. I am going to also post out the signature link in my account, and I want to make sure that you get those signatures. That's number one.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, and it's action for today. Everybody's always saying that. I loved what you said too. Forget about the midterms. Do something today. We have to do something today. The primaries, and the louder we are, the more we have our voices heard. And we just saw in Hungary that the people had power, and that should fortify us, because they want us to make us think, oh, don't run, you're never going to win. Oh, don't do this. Oh, don't even participate. Don't vote. Just do something. Just do something. Signing a document to get another voice, to have more debates, to have more people pounding the pavement and talking to people, activating the voters, educating the voters, which is what we need to do, and letting people know that we can have a whole new society, because we're adults. We can open up the presents on Christmas Eve if we want to open the presents on Christmas Eve. I always say that.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Policies are choices, right?
Yeah, we can choose whatever we want. We can choose to take care of our kids and make sure they eat and have a roof over their head. Why wouldn't we choose that?
Yeah.
Well, we're winding down though. So, any final thoughts? We'll let you finish up.
I do like to share the story. I got my little flyer here.
Awesome.
But no, I'm turning the pages so that I can see. No, I've got my little flyer that I hand out. And one of the things on the last page is why pink. Everything with the campaign is pink, and when it doesn't come up naturally, I do like to bring it up.
Beautiful.
So a big part of this campaign and why I got into this race and sort of the messaging of my campaign is, what is the best way to stand up to bullies? And as I was putting this campaign together, my older kid was being picked on at school because he likes the color pink. He's a boy and his favorite color is pink. And, as much as you'd like to believe that is not a thing anymore, apparently it still is. And so I figured, what better way to stand up for my kid and center that anti-bullying message in my campaign. So anytime you see me on the campaign trail, I'm wearing a pink shirt. My buttons and yard signs are all pink. And that's just sort of a fun story to end the campaign on. Yeah.
Thanks, Nolan.
You got me all emotional, and I appreciate you, and I love that we got to meet, and it's like everything going on, everybody's activated, and we can really transform our society, make it a society that cares about people. I love that. Last thoughts, Anthony?
I'm good, man. I just appreciate you coming here. It was a great conversation and just listening, and like I said, the most important thing right now is anytime I speak to a candidate, I'm going to help them get the signature they need or whatever they need. That's what, that's what I can do from here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for spending some time with us and giving people a chance. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, that'll be it. Thanks to everybody who was in the chat. Make sure to share this. Make sure to get on that page. If you know people in the area who will hand out those clipboards, oh my gosh, that's the way we take our power back. I love it. So
Me
empowering.
too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.